afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Each week we have an expert from the world of business sharing their knowledge, insights and tips to help you reduce costs, increase profits and drive efficiencies. If there's a topic out there that you'd like covered, or if you feel that you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie and perhaps we'll be here chatting one day soon. My guest today is a former professional footballer, entrepreneur and owner of Be Fit for Life, helping people to be fit, 40 and beyond. He has a particular interest not just in fitness, but in human longevity and quality of life. A dedicated lifelong learner in his chosen profession, he's attended programs all over the world to stay up to the date with the latest thinking and techniques. I'm delighted to welcome to the studio, Damien Maher.
Thanks for having me, Alec.
Oh, it's great. Fascinating intro there. Let's just take you from school. What were your thoughts? When were you leaving school and where were you going after that?
School for me was probably just a waiting game. I was like, football and sport was my passion, but my parents were from the country. So my dad was from Galway, so he extracted Galway and put it into a working class Dublin estate. So right. I had a little mini farm in the back garden. So the expectations, most of my dad and stuff was hard labour, so I brought up working labour, but college wasn't on the horizon. It wasn't ever in my train of thought. Sport was always the number one. If you weren't going to make it in sport, well then pick a trade. All
right. It's funny, back in those days, that was you given two options. Either A, go into a safe pensionable job for life, pick a trade. Actually, there was a third option, go to college, but none of us really wanted to do that.
Yeah, that wasn't never on my radar. It was get a job, work for the man.
All right, so sport was in your life. Soccer was the sport. So where did that take you?
I'd soccer in Gaelic, so from being in the country, I used to always play multiple sports and multiple age groups because, again, as I evolved, I was playing 16s, 18s, 21s, men's, so all the time I used to try and get, how would I appease everyone and play all the games, and then I sort of made a commitment to soccer about under 17, I'd say it was, and by the end of the year, I found myself in Germany playing with Leinster, and then when I came back from there, I had an opportunity to go to Manchester United.
Oh, fantastic. Manchester United. That must have been around Alex Ferguson's days.
Yeah, Alex was in his heyday, actually. I was just there before Roy Keane was just arriving, probably about a month or so after I was there. And so I got exposed to professional football, but just in terms of following your passion. It was my first exposure, and you get an opportunity to see, the workings, and you start off in an apprenticeship. So like a lot of professions, you might start off in an apprenticeship and you get to see, and you probably choose role models to learn from.
Yes.
But it gave me an interesting insight into when you look at the likes of Alex Ferguson, he was so much involved all around the club. So it wasn't hiding up in some office. He'd be very much knew everyone that was involved in the club, from the tea lady to the lads that drive the buses to training and all. And, it was good to see actually his leadership style and, how he ran the club and communicated with everyone.
I think we often forget the importance of those people who are well down the pecking order and the contribution they make.
Yeah, well, I think, I've heard many stories about Alec, and he knew everything about 15, 20 years later, after a guy from Dublin might have gone over there on trial or spent a short bit of time, he'd be asking about your dad. How's your dad? Is he still driving the taxi?
All right.
So he knew so much information about people that made them feel welcome and made them feel part of that culture. He created a culture.
He certainly did that. Of course, you were worldly travelled by the time you went to United.
Yeah, not quite so much, So part of my challenge was never really been exposed to travel, and I used to take up sports to give me an opportunity to probably get a chance to going across. Now, England was the furthest on my horizon, and I think I took up table tennis at about 15. I got my first trip to England. My next sort of trip would have been going over nearly playing football.
Right.
And at that stage, I found it harder to settle in because of the duration was longer. It was not really known when you're back or whatever like there. So it was a different time, and I found it very challenging to settle in. And if you go back that time, Alec, it wasn't as convenient. There was no internet to ring and contact with someone, so there was a little coin in the meter, and the nature of half the time, if I had to ring home, you might have been ringing down the road. There might have been a public phone box, so someone had to ring home, knock on your door to get someone out to talk to you. So you didn't get to speak long even if you got the chance.
It's amazing. You'd swear we were talking about Dickensian England, but we're actually just talking about a generation ago.
Yeah, as I said, like when you try to explain that to my little nieces and nephews at this stage, it just goes straight over their heads.
Yeah, they haven't a clue what you're talking about. I suffered that myself. So I suppose what you got the opportunity then to see was a culture being created within an organisation that was internationally known. What were your first takes on that, and how did you then later kind of start using that yourself?
I think when you look at something like there, you see so many pieces of a cog. You see so many people have a little part to play, you know, from everyone, from the ladies making the tea, from making the lunches, from the guys dropping off the bus, from the scouts to bring you there, from someone that picks you up in the airport. And you have this one vision coming from a leader in the form of Alex Ferguson. Obviously he has a board to go through, but everyone is committed to a standard. And what I learned about Manchester United and just recognised, obviously hard work. I mean, people used to talk back then of Fergie time. It was never over. You keep pushing yourself physically and mentally, and there's still an opportunity to go. And I think with Ferguson probably moving on, you don't really see that anymore. You don't see that same passion, that same commitment that, you know, people would talk about. They would just prefer the manager.
Yes.
You know, they knew who you were talking to if you had to go have a chat with him.
I think you've identified a couple of very important things there. Certainly a culture that he engendered within Manchester United. And you would expect that once that was put in place, as with most organisations that might be commercial, that would live on through the next stage. But quite obviously, I think if we just look at what's happened in Manchester United over the last number of years since he left, there's been no planning or succession planning that would have been in place.
I think when you look at it now, they're actually trying to go back to the players that were around the time of Ferguson. You know what I mean? And even Solskjaer says himself, he said, I'm not trying to be a Ferguson, there'll never be another Ferguson. But can we take some of the values that the club was built on in those times and try and re-ingrain it? They've tried to recruit, obviously, ex-players, because they're going to have more passion. They've come up through the fabric of Manchester United, as opposed to, you know, what happened is Ferguson there, he brought in David Moyes, and while he might have been passionate, have his own ideas, one of his first thing was doing nearly to offload all the current staff that were there to bring in his own people.
Yeah, so he wanted to put his own stamp on it. And you see that in business so often as well. There's a presumption that just because something is successful, there's always the systems in place to carry that on from one generation to the next, or from one CEO to the next, and it's not always the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously, I mean, it comes from the people, it comes from the culture, like the vision of what he had and how he shared it and how people got behind it, and then they worked all together. You know, the systems in place to do it in terms of furthering that on. Maybe there was a few boxes that weren't ticked along the way, which we've come to see fruition now.
Yeah. I suppose what you did see, and part of your lifelong lesson would have been the links from, say, something like a club, Manchester United, to business.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, I learned a lot of stuff from there. Like, you know, you go back to, if you ever ask, like, if some of the listeners are there thinking about what was their 5 or 6 year old dream, when no one else can tell you something you can't do, did you achieve it? Like when I was 5 or 6 years of age, I dreamed of playing for Manchester United, and most people will say you'll never get a chance to do that. You'll never. And my journey may have not been the orthodox route to go, you know, but I got there. But I'm saying is, I learned a lot of different lessons between them. But again, in terms of structure and professionalism, preparation for a game, you know, all the things that you do during the week for that one day on a Saturday or whatever a Sunday it is to shine. So everything in terms of preparation, in terms of hard work, they're all components that come with the business. And I brought all those lessons that I had. And so when I made a transition in terms of into fitness, like I come back and I played League of Ireland for a number of years, like a good number of years, and I started working in a gym, but I used to hold all the business guys that I coached up in high esteem, and some were very good, don't be wrong. And I'd look and I'd admire in them the same traits and behaviours that made them successful in business. But the same traits and behaviours that made them successful in business are the same traits and behaviours that made them successful in fitness. They just weren't applying them in a different area of their life.
And isn't that fascinating? So they're prepared to put in the discipline and all that's required to make a business successful, but forget about the engine of that business being themselves.
The thing about it, the massive thing is, like, you know, I meet a lot of people and they're in business number 5-6 years and they're looking for an instant gratification. They're for an instant solution. How do I get to the top of my health with the minimum amount of effort and time and application? How do I do it without planning, without a strategy, you know, without any form of commitment? You know, so the question sometimes I challenge a little good business guys and say, well, if I apply the same application, determination, hard work that you're doing towards your fitness, do I get a raise or do I get the sack?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's a point very well made, and I don't think people sort of equate the two. That the skills and disciplines required to make you successful in business are the same ones that really take you a long way in business.
I don't think a lot of the skills and traits, people might say, I wish I had this fella's discipline. Most people are disciplined. They're just applying it to a different area of their life. Their values are dictating where they are. For some guy, it's career. For some guys, it's the family. For some guys, it's the social life. He's really disciplined every Friday. He might have a few babies.
Yes.
We're trying to get him to, I always try to get the guys to link it. How will I make him better performing in business? How will I give him more energy? How will it increase his self-esteem or his mental clarity to improve his performance?
I know you talk about the corporate athlete. Actually, we'll just get on to that in a second. But for those of you who are just joining us, I'm speaking with Damien Maher, who is the owner and promoter of Be Fit for Life, who helps people to be fit 40 and beyond, and he's sharing his knowledge around health, fitness and business. Fascinating. We've just been talking about his interactions with Manchester United and the early part of his career, and we're now moving on to how we can apply the skills that can be learned through the disciplines of sport and apply them into business in a way that will take you a long distance and probably protect your health, which is more important than anything else.
Just there, Alec, you're mentioning about, like, we see these parallels in business, we see these parallels in fitness. And you've got a guy, like, there's a guy out in Florida called Jim Laurie. He had a book called The Corporate Athlete, and I spent some time with Jim and went out to Orlando. Now, when you think about all the business, all you guys out there today, when you're thinking about your first journey through your business career, you might have started at some sort of place in an organization, and the commitment that you probably had to make mightn't have been the biggest. But then again, the reward wasn't really big, and the amount of stress that you encountered running that role was probably not there.
Yep.
As you progressed, you probably went to another level.
Yep.
You probably went to maybe some lower level management, or you had certain targets that you had to commit to. We can see a parallel if we think about, we've got Leinster this weekend.
Yes.
Now, Leinster, basically, if you're a young rugby player, or if you're making that transition from schools, whatever, and originally it used to be you went and played for a club, maybe like Blackrock, you played in the AIL, you played in the league, and if you did well, you would probably have your manager and maybe an assistant guy, and you had a certain level of commitment, maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and you played in front of a few hundred people on the weekend. If you did well, you would have the likes of Leo Cullen come and choosing you for Leinster. Now what happens, instead of performing in front of 100, you're down in the RDS, which is today, you're performing in front of 15 to 20,000. But the difference between corporate business people and athletes is Leo Cullen will prepare his athletes to perform on that day, and he will do it by integrating a bigger team. He will have someone to work on the psychology. He will look at the strategy for the game. The guys will physically build their capacity in the form of a pre-season.
Right.
And that improves their ability to expand their physical capacity. They can work harder. This is the same in business, guys. You train, you improve your ability to work hard, you eat well, but it also improves your emotional capacity. You can tolerate more stress, because the higher the levels of industry that people get promoted to, like I asked lots of guys, what sort of shape were you in your first job? What weight were you in your second? What weight when you got promotion? The chances are these guys' health are deteriorating. The more responsibility, the more people they've got to manage, because then they've got to think clearer. Then they never really get to spiritual, like Maslow's spiritualized actualization. They never get to reach the potential, because they collapse either under too much stress, can't think clear enough, and training helps that do. So if we adapt an athlete's approach to business, because the athlete's career might be only 4 to 12 years. Most of you guys listening today are going to be working for 20 to 45 years, and the way this sort of pension goes, you got to be thinking long term.
I don't have the time. I'm sure you've heard before.
I think we've all struggled with this, Alec. I think like people are going at the time, and actually, guys, many of you listening today, you're probably not aware of it, but some of you, I think, are struggling with there's a malaise, there's a disease in society, Alec. I don't think anybody's talking about it. I mean, I've checked the HSE, I've checked all these people, and the disease is like, it's not physical symptoms, but you'll probably have to check, guys. Most of you listening today probably have this disease, and your friends are the ones that are going to have to tell you if you've got the symptoms. And the name of the disease, Alec, you probably never heard of it. It's called as-soon-as-itis.
As-soon-as-itis, great.
As-soon-as-itis. Now, you'll know you have the symptoms if you hear yourself or your friends say, as soon as I get the promotion, then I'll have more time. As soon, but you get promotion, you get more bills, you get more targets, you get more people to manage. As soon as little Johnny grows up, I've met so many little Johnnies, Alec. They're 6'4", they've got beards. These little Johnnies now are a lot bigger than their parents. So like, everyone has their story, but time moves on. You can't get yesterday back to today, you know. So the thing for everyone, I always say to them, make a choice. You can subtract a little bit of time now, or you can subtract a lot of time later. Because when they think about it, most people think to improve their health and well-being, their physical fitness, they think it's going to take a lot of time. Most people thoroughly think about an hour a day, Alec.
Right.
An hour is like 4% of their day. I don't want 4%. I don't even want 3%. I don't want 2%. But I want 1%. Would you listeners there today, would you be prepared to give up 15 minutes of your day to extend your life and be the best leader, be the best consultant, be the best business owner you can be? 15 minutes. That's a choice. Subtract a little bit of time now, or subtract a lot of time later, Alec.
Yeah, you can't buy that time back later. You can have recriminations, but you won't be buying back that time.
No. I mean, I've met many people here who've had that road to Damascus moment who have no time until they get some sort of news that's probably, it brings them down a different path.
Yes, and then they've all the time in the world.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, and sometimes it comes down to challenging conversations. I've coached a lot of business people and leaders in organisations, men and women, and like some of the guys, I said to them, okay, they've had a heart scare, and I said, okay, who was going to walk your daughter down the aisle when she's getting married?
Yeah, that's a poignant question.
Yeah, what about your grandkids? Have you thought about them? Would you ever be around for them? What memories would you like them to have? And it is those difficult conversations I have to get engaged with to get this guy to look at a side. And it's your values, you know, and it doesn't make it a thing. But sometimes it takes an intervention. Fitness does not have to be exclusion of career. Career doesn't have to be exclusion of fitness. They can work together, and you can be the best leader you can be by subtracting a little bit of time to make you perform at a higher level.
Yeah, and that just makes sense. And just as somebody who's been out to your gym, I know you have as many women members as men out there. So I know when you use the word guys, you are referring to women as well.
We have a bigger number of female leaders than guys. Like, we have more females in the company, and I think it's a mixture of females maybe more health conscious.
Right.
Guys might try to do it themselves initially at the start, or else they go back to their former what I used to be able to do.
Right.
And we look after, Alec, people over 40. So their bodies are physically not the same that they used to be. You know, I see the people over 40 as a neglected people in society in terms of health and fitness. You know, if they, it may surprise you to know, Alec, only 12% of the population are actually members of a gym.
Really?
Because
right.
when you think about, when your readers are thinking about, I said the word gym, I think I know what you were thinking. I think I know what you were thinking out there, guys. I think you were thinking of the typical stereotypical gym, the 18 to 25-year-old girl, she's wearing a lycra, she's taking pictures on her Instagram. Or else it's some little young fella, he's in the mirror, he's flexing, he's grunting and groaning. And most of your listeners, Alec, are saying to themselves, that is the last place I want to be. You know, in fact, you know, let's face it, for the benefit of mankind, they're saying their bodies are the last thing they're going to be putting into lycra.
I'd say they are, all right.
But I might ask a different question, Alex.
Yeah.
So if we were to share a thought with the client, with the people out there, if they change their perception that the idea of a gym was not about getting fit, what if the idea and the purpose of a gym, probably run, probably supported, probably managed, what if the purpose of a gym was helping them be the best leader they can be? What if the purpose was to help them extend their life? What if it was helping them to deal with the stresses that they're dealing with on a daily basis, so they leave that behind them to go back and be the best parent they could be? Would that change your ideas, guys, of, you know, men and women? Would that change your idea of a gym?
I think it would. And I think also that people tend to forget that a gym is actually a great place to escape, to get away from everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much potential there, but I would challenge a lot of the listeners to seek the guidance of a coach, because a lot of them try to go it alone. You know, and unfortunately, the expansion, I mentioned about being to, you know, Manchester United. I had multiple coaches and I got to learn from multiple people. When people go to gyms, they tend to go with themselves. Now, you know, many of your listeners are probably accountants. Many of your listeners are probably very knowledgeable, very educated, that if it came down to it, they could probably do their own tax returns.
Yes.
But if I gave them a scissors and a mirror, would they cut their own hair?
I've seen some of them.
I think someone will. But it says, like, if they get coaching, because the challenge basically being, I say the word gym, but I'm really looking for someone to come with coaching, because unfortunately some gyms probably aren't in the health and well-being business. They're probably in the equipment rental business. And that's where people sort of get a bit disillusioned. They join a gym, they exchange money. The easiest thing to exchange is swipe a credit card. And we've all been there. You know, but if swiping a credit card was all we needed to do to improve health and performance, everyone would be ripped.
We'd all be millionaires. If you're just joining us, you're listening to me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest is Damien Maher of Be Fit for Life. And for our listeners, Damien, where can they find out more information?
Our website, Alec, is befitforlife.ie.
Okay.
And we're based in Sandyford Business Park.
All right.
Out in Dublin 18.
Grand. I certainly know out there from my experience that you certainly get the full value of the equipment that you've got out. In fact, I know you actually tailored the equipment to work.
Yeah, Alec, like when I sort of we're looking at people over 40. Now, the reality for most of you guys there today is the body you have today is not the same body you had 10, 15 years ago.
Thanks for reminding me of that, Damien.
Some might be. Okay, Alec, but there's a difference. That's a good point you make. Look, so there's a difference to distinguish between getting old and aging. There's different types of age. So we have chronological age, Alec, and that's your age in years. And I talked to the guys the other day, and he says, don't say me age. I'll say, right, I'm not going to say your age. I'll say you're level 62. We're changing the levels. He sounds a bit better. But there's chronological age, which is your age in years. But then, Alec, there's your biological age. How is your heart functioning? How is your muscles functioning? You don't have to decline and follow that slide like everyone else. That's the thing. And then we got training age, how many years you're training. So I think people need to leave the idea of the age and the numbers. Don't let age be your cage. Let make time for your health and well-being, because biologically, you can get younger as you get older chronologically.
Yeah, people. Well, I suppose if you want the body of a 60-year-old, you can have it if you just neglect it enough.
You can, Alec, and that's where, as I said, is like you see some guys, and you're a great role model for there. I look at your commitment to your health and your commitment in time and effort to it. I think George Burns said, like the old comedian, he said, like, people have to start to adopt it. They start to round their shoulders. They start to walk slowly. And like my mum was like 60s, 70s. They said to her friends, like, what are you doing killing yourself? Well, you should be putting her feet up.
Yes,
if anything, you should be looking after it now, Alec, because one of the things for most of these guys do today is, from the age of 30, you started to lose 0.5% of muscle a year. Right. And then simultaneously, some of the guys were gaining 1 to 2 pounds a year. 10 years later, Alec, that could be 5 to 10 pounds of muscle loss and 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to see, I said the age of 30, Alec. I don't know about you. I haven't seen 30 in a while.
I
think most of us, most of your listeners have probably been a while since you've seen a 30s. Not to say all of them, but I think we either use muscle or lose muscle. That's a takeaway.
Yeah, well, I think people tend to forget. I mean, there are people like myself. I'm very interested in classic cars, but that doesn't mean I'd abuse the engine of it and not feed it the proper juices that it needs to run and make sure it's well looked after. And
when you're looking at a car like that, that's the thing about exercise. When people go back to exercise, they go back doing the activity they used to be. Sometimes that car has to spend some times in the pits.
Yes.
Because most of the money in Formula 1 is spent on these engineers. Yes, you'll have your race driver, but unfortunately, if a driver has a crash, they'll have a second fella in there pretty much the next day.
Yeah.
But it's looking at the components that make your car, whether that's your joints, whether it's one of mobility, where it's working on the small things, and then you get to live the quality of life you want to have.
Yeah. No, I think you identified it very much so that, do you want to give a bit now, or do you want to give a lot at the end? And I don't think people want to give a lot at the end. Tell me, for those who are out there and thinking to themselves, I can make a change, where do you start? Let's start at where I can make a change today or tomorrow.
There's different states of change, Alec. The thing to be, like, most people might wait, they might be in a stage, at least Proskanska wrote about the stages of change. There's pre-contemplation. I go see a doctor, he tells me my results are not great, and now I know I have the problem. And then I'm contemplating, I know I need to do something, but I've got the kids and I'm busy with work at the moment and I've got this deal to go through. And then they might go through preparation before they're ready for action. So when people are looking at doing it, I always say build habit-based goals. Build a process. So like business, I can't complain about my sales if I haven't done my marketing. So build the behaviors that give me an outcome-based goal. Don't chase weight loss. Chase, I'm going to go train 15 minutes a day, 6 days this week. I'm going to write my meal plan in advance, Alec. I'm going to put a big 1.5 litre bottle of my water in the morning and have a drink by the afternoon and one gone in the evening time. I'm going to write my meal plan in advance. I'm going to get to bed before 11 o'clock. Look at lifestyle behaviours, Alec. This isn't some 3-week solution to a 30-year problem. Most of the guys basically we're working with, we're looking to develop a better lifestyle to give them the quality of life and help them be fit for life.
Yeah, and exactly. And you don't build a business in 3 days either. You know, it takes commitment, it takes time, it takes a planning. And really this is what we're talking about is planning.
It takes a strategy. So I always ask guys for the health business plan. And what I'm looking for all the time is what's the outcome we're looking for, what's the behaviours, what's the pitfalls we need to avoid, where's it failed before, and what strategy can we develop that it doesn't happen again, and maybe we need to build a bigger team to help you along that way. But yeah, a business health plan will help them get to their goal quicker than going along.
If they want to find out more, where do they go again for that?
Yeah, like if they go to our website is befitforlife.ie, or else give the office a ring. It's 01-217-6518.
I know you're quite active on Facebook, so you've an active group
Be for Life. Be for Life. Find us on Be for Life on there. So again, it gets a chance to share a community and show people that are 40s, 50s, 60s business people who are actually making time for their health, because it overcomes the objections. People want to know, do you look after people just like me? Yes, we do.
Right. Well, what can I say? You packed a lot into that, Damien, I can say, and there's a lot of food for thought, if I can use a metaphor there. Okay, that's all we've got time for today. A special thanks to our guest, Damien Maher of Be Fit for Life, for coming into the You and Your Business studio today.
Thank you.
Thanks also to George on sound. Don't forget that you can contact the show by emailing your business at dublincityfm.ie with your comments and suggestions. The podcast of today's show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company, and please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 12:30, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.